report of the meeting yesterday, which is now officially called Forging Communist Unity. This was reported in a short article by myself in the latest edition of the Weekly Worker. It involves 3 organizations. Initially, it sort of involved 4, but the reality was, and that's where we're at, that the facilitator, which is an organization called 4 Marks, basically say, well, we're not really an organization. So really what we're dealing with at the moment, and that looks like what we'll be dealing with in the immediate future, is 3 organizations. First of all, the CPGB. Secondly, talking about socialism. We featured them in the pages of the Weekly Worker over the recent period. And another organization, an online publication called Prometheus. This organization sort of began the process by actually commissioning or calling for articles around the party question. And they've received articles not only from Mike McNair and Y. Marks, but a whole range of different opinions, ranging from the we want a communist party, which is our sort of perspective, right over to we want yet another broad left party of the sort that Mike referred to, which is presently going under the name a collective, one of a long line of failures of that sort. So yes, these 3 organizations came together, first of all, in a meeting late last year, December the 14th, if I'm not mistaken. My initial response when I heard about it was, oh God, what's going to happen here? I was very pleased, on the other hand, and all the other participants at the meeting, i.e. the representatives of the 3 organizations I've already referred to, came out of the December 14th meeting with a very different impression. I went in on the basis, I don't think much is going to come out of this. I came out of it on the basis saying, actually, these people appear to be serious. This actually heralds something positive, because it can send a very important message to the rest of the left that we can overcome sectism on the one side and broad frontism and soggy politics and liquidationism on the other. Either way, we finished our December the 14th meeting on the basis that we would reconvene and give a report back from our respective organizations. And I did that. We had an aggregate, when was it? God help us, just recently. So that would be, what, a week ago. Before that, we'd had a provisional central committee meeting, and I could report back to the comrades that the provisional central committee is, enthusiastic about this fusion process, is willing to support and put resources and effort into this fusion process. And I could give a similar report from our aggregate. So while, of course, comrades were right to voice some skepticism, given our experience of individuals and organizations associated with the other 2, I think the general consensus, we didn't take a vote, there was no need to take a vote, is that comrades were enthused by the prospect of fusion. So that was my report to the comrades. We'd already, at our aggregate, adding to the enthusiasm, had the statement from the steering committee of talking about socialism, a very positive statement again in the Weekly Worker. They want a communist party. It's worthwhile pointing out that the comrades are changing their own formulations in terms of what they stand for and what they're fighting for. And they're changing this, not my words, their words, this rather indistinct, what we're aiming for is a socialist slash communist party, straightforwardly to a communist party. That is progress. It's also progress, very welcome progress, that they explicitly state they are in favor of what they call frank exchanges, what we would call robust and frank polemics. That is definitely a step forward. And what they're in favor of is going forward as long as it takes, but as speedily as possible. So that was, again, very positive. Now, the comrades, you go onto their website, I've done that myself, have put their statement to their supporters and are awaiting meetings to actually see what the response to it is. I think we're all hopeful, we're all optimistic, but we wait in terms of the next meeting to get a report back on that. We had a similar report back, but not as advanced, from the editorial board of Promethean. There were two comrades from the organization. One called Comrade Alex, he's actually a member of RS21. This is the split from the SWP around the Martin Smith question. This is the full name of it, I suppose is worthwhile. Revolutionary Socialism in the 21st Century. Quite a mouthful, so you can understand why they've shortened it to RS21. Now, what the comrades have done, this group that is organized under the umbrella of Promethean, is that they've actually carried out a struggle in the ranks of RS21 and won the organization formally to commit itself in the future to a communist party. That is a step forward. Worthwhile noting, however, of course, that the SWP in their rules call themselves revolutionary communists. It's not something they normally, wave about, but under pressure from RCP 2, not the latest RCP 3, RCP 2, Frank Furudi and the Next Step and all the rest of it, which was a split in terms of its origins from IS, SWP. I think they changed their rules as a counter there. But what's also been positive with these comrades, I think the Weekly Worker deserves some credit here, but good on them too, is they've shifted the organization, RS21, from taking a social chauvinist, a social imperialist position on the Ukraine war. This organization was an affiliate of the ghastly Ukraine solidarity movement of Chris Ford, which has not only Paul Mason has already been referred to, John McDonnell, but also the social imperialists of the AWL, Anti-Capitalist Resistance, Labour Representation Committee, if it still exists. They've broken them from that. And in a recent, I don't think they call it an aggregate, but that's our tradition. In a recent aggregate, the organization voted for a pretty healthy position on the Ukraine war. So the comrades aren't just doing a cosmetic job. There's something more profound going on. And what Comrade Alex reported to us is that next month at the organization's next aggregate, there will be a declaration of a communist platform, a communist fraction within RS21. And there seems to be a debate. We had an official representative of RS21 at our first meeting who was a bit I'm here to see what's going on. Maybe they were there to see what unofficial RS21 was doing. But there seems to be a debate going on in RS21 about regroupment. Some of it's very positive, such as Comrade Alex and the comrades organized around this, as I say, online publication. Others are talking about, well, we can't touch the SWP. That's where we came from, and we think the SWP stinks. Others of them, I presume the rump social imperialists, are talking about anti-capitalist resistance, the Mandelites, people who used to be going around the streets of London when I was a little kid, well, teenager, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, victory to Viet Cong, who now, last time I saw them out on the streets of London, were going around shouting at the prompting of the AWL, at the prompting of Paul Mason, arm, arm, arm Ukraine. Paul Mason, by the way, someone who's agitating for a 5% GDP budget in terms of arms. So the comrade is putting forward, what's going on in a very positive way in terms of RS21. So we're not just talking about 3 organizations. You can already see the possibility of, the ripples going out into the left. Now, what we agreed was not to pursue the suggestion, the revamped suggestion that came from Y. Marx of a series of public seminars. We've not rejected the idea of a public aspect to this, but the fundamental approach that the 3 organizations are taking is this is between 3 organizations. And a lot of it, most of it, will take place in private, not because we've got anything to hide, but precisely because we're serious. And what I put forward, not immediately, but as we actually progress our discussions, if they are progressing, and in my estimate, there's every reason to be confident, we reach a stage of we say, look, we've got a pretty good basis of agreement. We might differ on this, we might differ on that, but hey, what we had from myself was a suggestion at some point in the course of these discussions, in order to continue participating in these discussions, the participants would have to pledge to abide by a unity conference decision. In other words, for example, if it came, I mean, this is me being facetious now. If it came, for example, to the founding conference of the original CPGB back in 1920, I think it was a leading comrade called Stewart, who actually moved that the organization commit itself to teetotalism. The idea would be, I'm horrified by the prospect, that if we were going into a conference, we would be bound by what that conference voted for. So, for example, if Comrade Stewart, God help me, voted for teetotalism, I put up my hand against, but the majority put their hand up for, I would be bound by that decision and would be pledged before going into that conference to be bound by that decision. Okay, that's a facetious example, but the main point really about 1920, the big debates, the important debates, the real debate was, do we participate in Parliament, yes or no? A surprising number who didn't want to. Should we vote to affiliate to the Labour Party? Again, in spite of Lenin lending all of his authority to it, those votes were quite narrow. But the interesting thing, the significant thing here was that the minority not only had pledged themselves to abide by majority decisions, they did it. And what we had is CPGB attempts to affiliate. We had CPGB both standing as Labour candidates, as Communist Labour candidates, as Labour Party candidates, quite successfully as well. So that's something that we pledged to do. And on the question of Promethean, what we had is the comrade who wasn't in RS21 saying that she would pledge at the appropriate moment to abide by a unity conference. And so therefore, what we suggested in terms of TAS and the CPGB is that we were proposing, it's up to the comrades, to send representatives of the two other organizations to the editorial board to see what the doubts, to see what the fears, to see what the alternative projects are, to persuade the editorial board to move at the same pace as us. If need be, maybe to separate, that a minority came with the fusion process, hopefully a majority, hopefully all of them come. But that is something for further down the line. So we've agreed to reconvene in a fortnight. Nick Rack, I think rightly made the suggestion that patience was a good idea. We don't want to rush things. There's no need to be impatient. He also suggested, which I readily took up, and I think this is something that we can implement, is face-to-face meetings. And he suggested face-to-face meetings between the leaderships. I think that's a good idea. I mean, we're also used now to Zoom meetings, you know, polemics in newspaper articles, polemics, you know, online. They're all valuable, but actually getting together in the same room, over a cup of coffee, over a pint of beer, that is definitely something positive. So I can report back progress. I can report a very positive atmosphere from what is now called FCU.